Morning all. Well, here we are, 9 o'clock, at least in the UK. Snow on the ground. What's that all about in November? Um, so afternoon for those, I guess, east, and I hope there's no one west because it really would be a terrible time in the morning. But I want to talk to you today about digivigils, research robots, which I have to say, even by brain user standards, are somewhat unusual, let's say. And so you'll have to forgive this first slide because I'm going to pretty much read it. This is what digivigil is. It's a robotic researcher programmed to represent a kind of particular type of marketing construct. So it could be a trend, it could be a segmentation, it could be a target audience, you know, the sort of things that we work with and marketeers work with as shorthands and inspiration for, you know, kind of their marketing. And a digivigil basically is designed to learn about that particular construct and build up a rich, detailed picture of their lives. Okay, I think probably the easiest way to really explain it is to actually sort of start to show you one. And I'm going to introduce you to Nicole. Okay, and Nicole, which we're going to build her life, was she's built up from key words, key characteristics, key emotions. But probably the easiest way to think about it is if we were going to create a digivigil for you, for each of you, what you'd have to do is you'd have to think, okay, so what are the words, what are the emotions, and what are the key characteristics that would describe me? And then you'd include where you live, what you do for, you know, your work, where you work, and a kind of a week in the life as well. You know, sort of, do you tend to go out at weekends? Are you in, you know, during the weekdays? Yeah, so you build up a kind of a framework of your life. And then what happens is the digivigil, the research robot, races out onto the internet using Twitter as the first filter. We're working with a very brilliant a bunch of software engineers called the Filter Factory. That's PHPH, Filter Factory. And their view is basically you can use the web, the teeming mass of humanity on the web, you can filter it in order to build something that doesn't yet exist anywhere on the web. So it's like a creative search engine. That's how they think of it. And what we've been doing is working with them to apply it to market research. So basically to be, you know, a kind of creative insight generator, you know, to understand these marketing constructs and extract insights from them. Okay, so it races out onto the internet and it's looking for content that you could have actually produced yourself. You know, if this is your research robot, yeah, via Twitter, and then it looks on Google search, YouTube for videos, Flickr for pictures, blogs, and it's basically gathering any content that seems to fit the array, and it's basically done in terms of algorithms. So it's not looking for single words, it's looking for combinations of words at the appropriate time of day, in the appropriate city, you know, if necessary. I mean, you can program it to get local content or whatever you need. And what it's doing is it's building up a picture, if you like, of all of the possible, you know, kind of content that that could have been around you. This was Nicole, and we gave her an eBay account. We actually gave her an address. I think it was West London. And she was a jewelry designer. You know, that fitted. She actually represented a trend. Small, precious, and captivating. This was a trend that we were experimenting with. And basically what happens is you get thousands of pieces of media, of content. And what you have to do, of course, is to then, if you like, sift it and plan it and work with it to reveal, in this case, you know, Nicole's life. You know, what is it about her that's particularly interesting? How do you color in that particular trend? Remember, she represented a trend. And what you're doing is you're trying to separate the media into books and films and you know, YouTube videos, whatever it might be, and then start to look for the patterns that come up, the things that sort of seem to rise to the top. And so just to give you a little flavor, this is Nicole's Lifeboard. and starting at the top left, dogs, pets, if you like, particularly cute ones, came up a lot. You know, there's something about her that's very kind of cute and domestic, you know, domesticated, if you like. There were lots of stories, though. I mean, she was a very much, you know, sort of slightly lyrical, and the stories had an edgy, gothic, kind of dark edge to them. So there was an interesting kind of combination when it comes to Nicole of almost the kitsch, but also with a bit of edge. And you can start to see down on the bottom right these quirky kind of adult dolls, if you like, and they came up quite a lot. You know, sort of visually interesting, very detailed, but kind of slightly unusual, you know, for an adult to, you know, to be interested in that. And then she's, I suppose, more conventionally, but she's into the sort of the urban village life. I mean, it's very much the sort of Sex in the City, but this is London. I mean, it's sort of West London. And so that urban village is part of her life. So you start to get a sort of picture, and there's much more behind it, but it gives you a flavor. There's a video. What we then do is produce a video, normally about 8 to 10 minutes, which is her life. It's almost like a week in the life of Nicole. We can't show the video on the GoToMeeting, but if you go to the discussion board afterwards, there's a link in there where you can actually watch Nicole's video. So you can start to get a flavor. And everything on the video, just like all of these images, have been automatically gathered from the web. Yeah? So everything we get, we're not going out looking for these photographs. They're coming in, and the videos that you see are coming in, and they all come in automatically. The skill, I guess, of the planner, of the researcher, is a bit like with qualitative research. You're sifting all this massive information to then, if you like, pull out the patterns and make sense, and to give Nicole a, you know, a kind of a realistic sense of this would be the life of a person if they represented this particular trend. Yeah. And remember, this is coming from, I think with Nicole, we had something like 10,000 people from whom we drew content. So it's a strange mixture of mass ethnography. It's like a sort of quantitative ethnography reduced to this single person where you really, really understand her life. And when we were doing this project with the client, we had 10 of these. We made a male and a female character for each of 5 trends. And I think what was interesting at the end of the workshop, because we kind of did the sifting and pattern recognizing together, was that none of us had any sense that we weren't actually dealing with real ethnography, as if these 10 people had been followed, you know, for weeks, if not months, and we really understood their life. I think that's the exciting part of it. Okay. So that's Nicole. It gives you a flavor of, hopefully, of how this works. The next example, yeah, Nicole, this is the video, but I can't share it. And the reason I put this picture together of the sort of pixelated, made out of, because in a sense that's what it is. It's Nicole is one person, but made up of thousands and thousands of people. Okay. Another example. We were given a brief, you know, by a client to do electronics. But I tell you what, just before I do that, well, the way that we get to the insight, because I think it's, you know, it's all very well getting something that's rich and hopefully inspiring, but what do you do with it? And what we've been doing is we've been reverse engineering insights from these digivisuals. And the way that we do it, I mean, I'm sure there are others, but this is the way that we found that works pretty well, is you understand, in this case, Nicole, you know, in real detail. Then what you do is you invent a product, in this case, you know, candy or, you know, sort of chocolate. You invent a product that Nicole would absolutely love. You know that she would love it because you understand her life. So you're literally inventing products, sort of one-to-one marketing, if you like, you know. And once you've got the product, you ask yourself, so what is it about that product that Nicole would love? And that's where you get to, you know, a potent insight, because you can actually kind of really sort of pull out some edge. And in this particular project with the client, we actually kind of pulled out about 10 insights, and we tested them, you know, validated them just to, you know, to check that that it was actually delivering. So this is Nicole. This is just one of the insights that I'll show you in a minute. Didn't do particularly well. It did all right, but it'll give you the flavor. So Nicole is fascinated by design, fashion, craft. She's genuine, sociable, has an infectious zest for life. She's a magpie. She's alive to the joys that little things can bring. She's found hanging around in the cooler parts of town, a source of inspiration. She loves the buzz of the big city, but revels in the intimacy of the urban village. She's popular. She has a close circle of friends who admire her warmth, elegance, and generosity. This is embarrassing to say, but my German managing director was starting to fall in love with Nicole. He thought she was lovely. Anyway, moving on. The idea that we came up with for her was almost like T-shirts display messages, but these would be large sweets called cuties. So they're large wrapped flat sweets, yeah? And for example, one might have a kind of a cute dog. Remember, she was into dogs, with a curly coat and then a bald patch kind of taken out of the coat. And it just says bad hair day repair. And she might give that out to a friend if she was feeling particularly cruel. Or a cute dog with its eyes lowered, kind of looking very sorry. And then the cutie would say, sorry, I'm a bad hound. She might give that out just to say sorry. The insight that you're then able to extract is there are times in my life when I just need to say sorry or cheer up a friend. Just be coquettish or plain silly. Wouldn't it be great to be able to express my sentiments in chocolate or candy or whatever, whatever it is. Right, so I'll show you, I can share that one because it didn't do particularly well, but it did all right. This is how we test insights. It's quantitative, and basically what we're looking for is resonance and edge. What we're really doing is trying to find insights that would produce the following response in respondents. Wow, you really understand me, which is the resonance part, almost better than I understand myself. When someone says something and you raise an eyebrow or it makes you smile and you go, that's true, that is true, but I've never heard it said quite like that before. Yeah, that's our definition of a really good insight. The red cross at the top of resonance is the cuties insight, and it resonated, but it didn't really have much edge, as you probably gathered as I read it out. Luckily, there were two others, one of which you can see there with the yellow cross, which did extremely well, and the client are using for the basis of their concept development. Okay. The other example that I mentioned was the electronics company, and this was the iPod competitor, basically, which apparently is far superior in terms of sound quality. And they had a very specific brief, which was, we need a better insight. We need a better insight that's focused on sound quality. And that was our challenge. We had to come up with one that was better than the one that they were using. And so what we did is we created 9 digivisuals, 3 in America, 3 in Germany, 3 in Brazil. And they kind of represented, sort of 3 decades, if you like, of, kind of 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 40-year-old. And we wanted to understand their lives, but we also wanted to understand music and its role in their life, what sort of music they listened to, how they were out, did they listen to music inside, outside, how did it play, if you like. Now music, trying to build a real music collection for each of them proved a hell of a challenge, because you imagine if you're doing this by keyword, you can't exactly search for titles of songs or albums in any meaningful genre sense. You can start to, kind of search by genre, but then it's too vague. So what we did actually as part of this is we created a bot called Bot Marley, a digivisual called Bot Marley, who's currently still running around Kingston, Jamaica. And it was a bit of experimental, but we've learned that what you do is you say, well, what radio station would this person of that age, in this case, Lara in Sao Paulo, what would she be listening to in Sao Paulo? What would Matthias in Frankfurt be listening to? And it may be 1 or 2 radio stations. And what you can do is you can actually monitor, kind of minute by minute, what that radio station is playing right now, and you build up a list of the songs that they're playing. And then you can use the programs that say, well, people who like this song also, would like this song. And very quickly you start to build up a very credible, kind of believable music collection. Anyway, that's just to give you a little flavor of, some of the sub-programs that we're developing and playing with, so that you can, all of this, by the way, is just so that you can create a incredibly rich and believable person, a single person that represents a large group of people, yeah, and in an inspiring way, in a more inspiring way, I hope, than sort of typical segmentation exercise, which produces something quite kind of flat and two-dimensional. This is like the three-dimensional version, I guess. Anyway, for this company, we created a whole bunch of insights. And again, I'm pleased to say that there was one around sound quality of, when you're out on the go, which they're now using, which was significantly better than the one they had, and they're delighted. And then the last example is we were doing some work with Philips on net promoters, or they use net promoters as a kind of construct for their marketing. And what they wanted to do is to create a digivisual, well, for their net promoter. And we did it in two categories. Jennifer, who represented baby care. This is the Avent baby care, and she was the net promoter for that product. And Ross was the net promoter for Sonicare, so teeth, oral care. And you can see on the right-hand side some of the inputs, yeah, that we actually use to program them, just so you get this is in the green and the blue and the orange. And these are the combinations of words that we're using, to actually kind of race out and find the information. By the way, as we're doing it, I mean, with the trend, something like trends, which is very imprecise. I mean, if you're doing a segmentation, you've got a lot of the inputs to actually know, how to program. When you're doing something like a trend, it's much more of an art than a science. And you can let them go, look at what you're getting after a week, and if it's not right, then basically you can just change it. You can tweak the inputs, and then you start to get different material until, frankly, it feels right. So just to finish, I'll give you an idea of Avent. So this was Jennifer, and you can imagine. I mean, there was a beautiful video which you can see at the bottom here, of her videoing her baby's room, which was incredibly color coordinated. And as she was videoing it, she was kind of honing in on each object. And she knew who had given the object or where it came from. I think her mother, something had come from her childhood, something was in the mother. So Jennifer is seriously, into her children. And, she protects them, but she's trying to find time, if you like, to nurture relationships and, keep fit and trying to do all of that. Anyway, she's trying to do it all. The idea, the product that we created for her, the same process of getting to an insight, was a baby cradle that actually detects movement when the baby's stirring, and it can just gently shift. So, if the baby really isn't ready to wake up, then it'll just help them stay asleep. And the insight, was basically mums, dads, the whole family, need their rest from a hard day's parenting. But all too often the nights are interrupted by, the baby screaming. Wouldn't it be great if babies could be encouraged to continue sleeping and only scream the house down when they really need something? And that's something that Philips are actually exploring as a real product and a real insight. So I hope in our 20 minutes I've given you a flavor of what on earth digivisuals are. What are these research robots? How do we start them? How do we use them? And how do you extract insights from them? So far, I mean, we've been working with this for most of this year, and we have done segmentation, which worked beautifully. It sort of translated 2 dimensions into a rich 3 dimensions. We've used it for trends, as I've talked about, for net promoters, and basically just for generating insight in a particular category to a very specific brief. For me, I'm hoping that it might almost prove to be like an insight stream. It's like a stream of insights as you kind of just leave the digivisuals running and see what happens over the course of a year, over the course of time. Anyway, I'm sure we're just at the beginning. I have to tell you, it's been great fun, experimenting and playing, with them, and they do seem to be producing, kind of rich, useful material for clients. So, anyway, time for questions, I think.